Hi there, LW222 Science of Nutrition and Exercise students. This is the PowerPoint presentation for Unit 1 in your textbook. And Unit 1 just basically talks about some key nutrition concepts that you should have a grasp of. As we move through the course, it'll be very helpful for you to understand some of these concepts and some of these different terms. So first of all, I just want to take a look at the definition of nutrition. So you can see here that nutrition is the study of foods, their nutrients, and other chemical constituents, and the effect that those food constituents actually have on our health. You know, one thing that I always like to say to people is we should eat for energy. Think of food as fuel and try to make better choices that are going to have a positive impact on our health. Also noting that nutrition is interdisciplinary. So not only is there quantitative stuff involved like math, you are going to find there's going to be quite a bit of math that we're going to be doing as far as calculating calories and percentage of total calories from carb, protein, and fat. But also, you know, it's going to be chemical, you know, biological, social, are all sciences that are involved in the study of nutrition as a whole. And also noting that this information that you're going to be learning about throughout this entire course is information that can be applied to your own diet. And I'm really hoping that you will share this information with your friends and your loved ones and your family members, and you'll hopefully make better changes as a result and understand that you can apply this to your life not only now but for the rest of your life. So chapter 1 talks about some key nutrition concepts, and it has a total of 10 different concepts that I want to run through with you. So concept number 1 is understanding that food is a basic need of humans. So to think like a nutritionist, you need a grasp of the language. So we need to understand certain language and ideas as we work through the textbook. And some of the language that you're going to hear, especially in this first chapter, is food security and food insecurity. So the difference simply is that, you know, when we have food secure households, that means we have access at all times to a sufficient supply of safe, nutritious food. But then food insecure households do not have that access to safe, nutritious food, or they can't acquire them in a socially acceptable way. So many households today do live in insecure households. They're food insecure households. So we definitely need enough food to live. We need a different assortment, you know, getting all those 5 different food groups. We need to be able to acquire those foods in a socially acceptable manner. And noting that a big percentage, 14.3% of the US population and 7.7% of the Canadian households do live in food insecure households. So these types of families definitely tend to have poor diets. So if they're living in a food insecure household, there's a chance that their dietary pattern is going to be really poor. They tend to be overweight and obese individuals, and then they also tend to suffer from hypertension, high blood pressure, heart disease, and even diabetes, some chronic diseases as a result of this food insecurity. So it is impacting their health in a negative way. Concept number 2 talks about foods providing energy. So in the world of nutrition, food comes in the form of, or energy comes in the form of calories. So when we ingest, for example, carbohydrate, it produces energy in our body. And that's produced from the calories that we contain, that the carbohydrates contain. So certain food sources contain these calories, and in turn they can produce energy. So there are what we call 6 essential nutrients, and those 6 essential nutrients are carb, protein, fat, vitamins, minerals, and water. So the first 3, carbs, protein, and fat, are considered your macronutrients, and those would be the macros that can provide energy. They can produce adenosine triphosphate, ATP, in our body. Vitamins, minerals, and water, even though they're still considered essential nutrients, they cannot produce energy alone in your body because they do not contain any calories. So again, in the world of nutrition, when we talk about energy, energy comes in the form of a calorie. So keep that in mind. So vitamins cannot produce energy, even though we hear that at certain points through marketing. So again, your energy requiring nutrients are carb, protein, and fat. Carbohydrates and protein both contain 4 calories per gram, and fat contains 9. We're going to talk more at length over the course of this semester on these different macronutrients, but today just a quick definition. When we look at carbohydrates, you have 2 different types. You have your simple sugars and your complex. And note that carbohydrates are your body's #1 preferred source of energy and fuel for your brain, your central nervous system, and your skeletal muscle. So a diet that's very low in carbohydrates is going to leave you feeling tired and having a lack of energy and maybe even unable to concentrate and focus on things. So ingesting the right types of carbohydrates, those that are high in fiber, that are whole grain, are key in a healthy dietary pattern. Protein is another essential nutrient. Protein contains and includes all of our essential amino acids. So definitely consuming the right types of protein so we can get all of those amino acids and in the right amounts is key. And then fats, we have what we call good and bad fats in our diet. Good fats would be things like your unsaturated fats, like mono and polyunsaturated fats, your EFAs, essential fatty acids. And then your bad fats would be things like saturated fats, trans fats, and foods that are high in cholesterol. And again, we'll just be talking a little bit more in depth about those different types of fats when we get to that particular chapter. And then the 3 non-energy yielding nutrients, vitamins, minerals, and water, we'll also be talking about more at length. There's different chapters on each one, but as far as your vitamins go, there are 14 known vitamins. They can be broken down into 2 categories. You have your water-soluble and your fat-soluble vitamins. We also have minerals. There are 15 known minerals. And again, these are all, these 14 vitamins and 15 minerals are required, and so we must consume them through different foods in our diet. And then also water is considered an essential nutrient. So making sure we're drinking enough of water on a daily basis is key to a healthy dietary pattern. Other substances in our foods that we might be ingesting and things that you're going to hear about over the course of the duration of this course are phytochemicals and antioxidants. Phytochemicals are what give plant foods color, and diets that are rich in these phytochemicals, and you can see foods in the picture, are very colorful. You've got a lot of fruits and vegetables. Color is a key thing in that particular photo in this slide. Diets that are rich in these types of foods that provide a lot of phytochemicals tend to reduce the risk of various forms of cancer. They reduce the risk of heart disease, infections, other disorders. So phytochemicals are key and really important in a healthful dietary pattern. So here you can see those energy requiring nutrients, carb, protein, fat, and then your 14 known vitamins here, and then your 15 minerals, and then of course water. So those are your 6 essential nutrients, and we'll be talking about each one more in depth as they each have their very own chapter in the textbook. Also, just a quick understanding of units of measure, because we will be doing various things over the course of the semester that require you to determine what a serving is for different food groups and things like that. So for example, when we look here, a slice of bread, your grain group actually is measured in ounces. So 1 ounce is equivalent to 28 grams. So what's that look like when we're choosing a grain? Well, even just 1 slice of bread is going to be equivalent to 1 ounce. Or teaspoons, tablespoons, things are measured, condiments are measured using those types of things. Or they might be measured in cups. So we'll be getting into different serving sizes actually in chapter 4 and chapter 6 in your textbook as well. Also, RDA, what does that stand for? Recommended Dietary Allowance. So that's just the recommended level of nutrient intake needed to prevent deficiency disease. And note that they're based on your age, your gender, and if you have different health conditions. So we all have different RDAs, so men might have a different number than what's recommended for women, but it's important for us to follow what those recommended dietary allowances are for each of those essential nutrients. Also, RDAs are kind of the same thing as DRI, dietary reference intake, and you will see this when you especially do your personal diet analysis, that DRIs are just basically the nutrient intake standards for healthy people. So anyone who is not diagnosed with disease, you're healthy, your DRI, your dietary reference intake, is basically the amount of food you should be eating for each of those different food groups and those different nutrients. And then some other terms that you might see as well over the course of the semester is AI, adequate intake. And that's just a number that's recommended when there's no evidence or not enough research out there to give us an RDA. So there are certain vitamins and minerals like vitamin K and fluoride does not have an RDA set for it, but they do have an adequate intake set for it. And then another one that I want to point out here is the tolerable upper intake level, so the UL. So this is basically giving us a safe upper limit of a specific nutrient. So we might have an RDA of 75 milligrams for a key nutrient, but then it might also list an upper limit, like say 150 milligrams. So it's basically saying that 75 milligrams is the standard recommended dietary allowance, but if you ingest up to 150 milligrams, you won't have any negative, side effects or overdose effects of taking that particular key nutrient. Nutrition concept number 3 just talks about how health problems are related to nutrition and how it originates within our cells. So everything really begins at the cellular level. And so what happens is, damage at the cellular level occurs and something happens with that replication of DNA, and therefore it tends to replicate in a way that's not healthful, and that just leads to some inflammation in our body, which long-term inflammation can definitely lead to different chronic diseases. So any health problems that stem from nutrition, it's going to originate within our cells. Also, concept number 4 talks about poor nutrition being the result of inadequate or even excessive levels of nutrient intakes. So if we don't ingest enough of certain key nutrients, we can have deficiency symptoms as a result. And then on the flip side, if we ingest too much of a key nutrient, we can have overdose effects as a result. And when we get into the chapters on vitamins and minerals, you'll see that each vitamin and each mineral does list certain deficiencies. So if we have certain ailments as a result of not taking, enough of a certain vitamin, maybe it's simply increasing our ingestion of that particular nutrient to remedy that health consequence. So here you can see just an example of inadequate dietary intake of just vitamin A. Vitamin A helps with our vision, basically. And so over time, if we don't ingest enough vitamin A, you can see a long-term consequence can even be losing your vision as a result. So that's just an example of how it can be pretty detrimental to our health just by not ingesting enough of certain key nutrients. So that's a pretty severe result, but this is pointed out in your textbook, so I wanted to make sure that you took a look at that. Concept number 5, humans have an adaptive mechanism for managing fluctuations in nutrient intake. So basically, energy expenditure declines when caloric intake is low. What that means is when we starve our bodies and we don't ingest enough calories in a day, your metabolism shuts down. So basically, it slows the rate at which you burn calories over the entire day. So many people say, oh, I want to lose weight, I'm going to starve myself. That's not the answer to weight loss. We have to eat to lose. So you have to ingest enough calories on a daily basis to keep your metabolism stoked, to keep that furnace fired up and revving on high. And on the flip side, if we consume too many calories, more than what our body actually burns off, your body's going to store those excess calories as fat. So that's an example how your body just adapts to different mechanisms. Also, another interesting one is your iron. When your iron stores in your body are low and you ingest a food item or a food source that's rich in iron, your body will absorb as much iron out of that food source that it can. But if your iron stores within your body are already high and you still ingest a food source that's rich in iron, your body will not absorb any of that iron in the food. And another adaptive mechanism is excess vitamin C. Anything over 100% of the RDA for vitamin C is simply excreted through your urine. Your body will only use up to 100% of the RDA. Concept 6, malnutrition can result from poor diets. So for example, when we have things like a poor diet, we have different disease states like diarrhea, alcoholism, cancer, HIV, AIDS, and genetic factors, things that can produce excessive amounts of cholesterol. Some folks have a strong family gene and they just have high cholesterol, and no matter what they do to try to combat it, they're always going to have that high cholesterol. So unfortunately, they might have to be on medication as a result. So malnutrition not only results from just a poor diet, but it can also result from these disease states, but it also can result from certain genetic factors as well. Also, number 7, some groups of people are at a higher risk of becoming inadequately nourished than others. So these are all examples of folks who, are at a higher risk, or they might need higher amounts of key nutrients than the general population. So for example, women who are pregnant, folic acid is a huge need for those women who are pregnant. So they need higher amounts of folic acid during pregnancy. So each one of these different populations definitely have a higher risk of malnourishment. Concept 8, poor nutrition can influence the development of certain chronic diseases. Chronic diseases means that it can occur over a long span or long period of time. It doesn't just occur overnight, but it could take years sometimes to even develop this chronic disease. So research is linking each one of these together. Number 1, diet being high in saturated or animal fats is definitely linked to higher levels of heart disease in people. Diets that are low in our fruits and vegetables is linked with various forms of cancer development. Diets that are low in calcium and vitamin D are linked with higher rates of osteoporosis. And then diets that are high in sugar are linked with tooth decay. And then concept 9, adequate variety and balance are key characteristics of a healthy dietary pattern. We definitely want to have adequate amounts of those 6 essential nutrients, so making sure that we're paying attention to the RDAs and DRIs for each essential nutrient, but also getting a lot of variety, a lot of phytochemicals and phytonutrients in our diet, making our plate colorful and getting a variety of different food sources, and of course balance. Making sure we're getting enough of these 5 different food groups, as you can see listed here on the choosemyplate.gov. That's a key to a healthy dietary pattern. And then concept number 10, there's no good or no bad foods. We can include anything into a healthy dietary pattern as long as we choose things in moderation. So the problem today, though, is many people consume excess calories. And a big reason why they consume excess calories is due to the overconsumption of energy-dense foods. What does energy-dense means? Remember, energy comes in the form of a calorie. So that means that we're choosing foods that have a relatively high amount of calories per unit weight of food. So say, for example, you choose some potato chips. In just a small amount of potato chips, there's a lot of calories in it. So energy dense. We're choosing a lot of these types of foods that are very high in calories per unit weight of food. In addition to that, we're choosing empty calorie foods. And those are things like soft drinks, candy, alcohol, that basically provide nothing but calories. There's no nutritional value in any of these foods. So those are big reasons why people, are consuming these excess calories. What we want to do is consume a nutrient-dense diet, or foods that are nutrient-dense. So meaning they don't have, a high calorie content, but they're rich in a lot of key nutrients. So example of foods that are nutrient dense are broccoli, lean meats, things like that. And also, you can see here, this is an example of, two different foods. Skim milk being one, and soda, Coke being another. They're both just 1 cup. You can see that the cola basically is just an empty calorie food. It provides no nutritional value as far as any vitamins or minerals, but it just provides calories. On the other hand, the skim milk provides roughly about the same amount of calories, but look at all the key nutrients that skim milk does contain. So definitely an energy nutrient dense food like skim milk is something that you'd want to consume over an empty calorie food like soda. So yeah, it can fit into a healthful diet as long as the nutrient needs are met at caloric levels that maintain a healthful body weight. So we will be calculating how many calories a day you should be ingesting, and we're going to take a look at your diet to see if you're falling within those recommendations.